Well, hey guys, what's up? It's your boy, one and only AI Legends, and yeah guys, today I am back with the next part of what if Naruto was abandoned by his family and was banished by Konoha. So yeah guys, without and hopefully you guys will like the series. If you guys have not seen the last part of this series, please check it out. You guys will definitely like it. And I just want to end this series as quick as possible, and hopefully in this part or in the next part this series will be over. And yeah guys, please enjoy the series, and if you guys have not subscribed to the channel, please guys do so. For the next part, the like goal is going to be 250 likes and 180 comments. Do that and I shall upload the next part as quick as possible, and hopefully today. So yeah guys, without any further ado, let us start the video. Last time we left off as we saw that how Minato as well as Konoha was losing the whole situation a lot quickly, as they were now getting desperate in this whole fight and all that against the elemental nations, as Minato along with the council wanted something as it came in the form of Jiraiya, as Jiraiya gave the news that how somehow the Uzumaki has returned to the map of the elemental nations, as well as all the Uzumakis have returned back to the life, as Konoha as well as its council was really utterly shocked after hearing that, as they were pretty scared at that, especially Minato seeing that in the last battle his Harvashian was literally, you can say, put to useless, as Minato was so much dependent on his prized Chusu, but somehow they Komo as well as Aiwa got a jutsu which nullified the effects of his Harvashian, as he got pretty badly injured in the battle against Aiwa as well as Komo, as both of them beat Minato to the ground, as he was barely able to escape with his life. And now this whole situation, but then Minato came up with the brilliant idea to turn all the elemental nations against the Uzumaki, seeing that how those Uzumakis were feared across the elemental nations previously because of their, you can say, jutsus as well as their secret bloodline, and especially their stealing art, as they could shut off their bloodlines as well as the chakra network of a person permanently if they so much require only a single touch to do so. That was one of the most reasons they were feared across the elemental nations, and they were destroyed for that. And now Minato came up with a brilliant idea to turn off against the Uzumakis, as they call a cage summit, in which he explained the situation to all the cages, as they were pretty scared at that, knowing that it was the alliance of all the elemental nations which took down the Uzumaki clan, and now it seemed that they somehow came back to life, and how this single person who is the Jinchuriki of the QB as well as possessed the Rinnegan and all of this power, and now all the other elemental nations were pretty scared, while Gaara tried to help his friend, saying that how they are not a threat, while on the other hand Konoha is. As Minato explained that how they may have possessed the secret weapon of the Sage of Six Paths, but it seemed that the Uzumaki clan has took it for themselves, and now they are on the possession of that weapon once again, as all the other elemental nations were pretty scared after hearing that if they have the secret weapon of the Sage of Six Paths as well as they are out for revenge, then they are a threat to all of the elemental nations, as they were more than ready to help call off this whole situation and put it against the Uzumakis. So yeah guys, that was the last part of the whole series, so let us begin the part from here on. So yeah guys, that was the last part. Now let us begin with the within the Uzumaki, as one figure was standing on the tallest tower. This was none other than the new Uzukage of the Uzumaki, none other than Uzumaki Naruto, as Naruto was looking beyond the lands of the Uzumaki towards the sea, as the waves were colliding with each other, as tornadoes as well as whirlpools were being formed in the ocean, as Naruto simply had a small smile on his face. Once again, the Uzumaki clan was back on the land of living, as they were literally happy in the whole world, as Naruto simply had a small smile on his face. And then an Ambu landed beside Naruto, as he said, "Well, Lord Uzukage, it seemed that all the other elemental nations had a case summit previously." As Naruto simply smirked at that, it seemed that everything was going according to the plan. As Naruto simply looked back towards the Ambu, as he nodded, as he simply vanished from the area. But then another figure arrived. "Are you sure about this whole situation, Naruto? It is a big risk, you know." As Naruto simply smirked at that, as he opened his eyes, as this figure was none other than Nagato Uzumaki, his long lost cousin. As Naruto simply smirked, well, don't worry about it, Nagato. I have a plan for this whole situation. Soon enough, the Uzumakis will have nothing to fear, or there will be no people out for revenge or anything like it. Don't worry about it. As Nagato simply shook his head. Well, to be honest, Naruto, I started the Akatsuki. You know the main reason. That was peace, but it turned out to be pretty bad. But I really hope that this whole situation will turn out well. As Naruto simply smirked at that, soon enough, Nagato, you will see the whole plan as well as the power I actually hold. As Nagato simply shook his head, well, I do have a rough idea about your powers, Naruto, but you honestly believe that you can take on the elemental nations, even though you have the Rinnegan. And when I had it, even I was not that arrogant. As Naruto started to chuckle as he said, well, Nagato, when the time will come, you will see the true power I hold in my possession. Soon enough, Nagato, soon enough. As he simply looked back towards the sea, as Nagato simply shook his head, as Naruto vanished in a black mist. He already had a destination. It seemed that he will have a long lost reunion with his grandmother figure. That is none other than Tsunade. Now let us cut back to the Sand Village. As Gara was in his office wondering about this whole situation, it is really troublesome. It seemed that the sin of the past are trying to catch up to them. He was thinking hard. He has to do something. As the cage meeting ended, even though they did not came to a conclusion, but soon enough they will want an answer against the Uzumakis. They will want all the other elemental nations to be there. It seems that Konoha has really turned the situation against the Uzumaki clan so that they could get some breathing space. As Gaara simply shook his head at that, he has to do something. Maybe he can talk with Naruto. After all, according to the intel, Naruto is the leader of the Uzushiho Gakure and hopefully he will be able to help them. And Gaara could explain the situation that his village may have done some bad things in the past, but as long as he is the case cage, he can help the situation. As but before he could think something else, suddenly a blast of wind rushed towards him, but Gaara quickly put up his automatic defense of sand blocking the attack, and then suddenly several kunai with explosive tags rushed towards him as Gaara's eyes widened, wondering what is going on here. If someone was attacking him, where were his Ambu? As Gaara quickly jumped out of the window, boom! In the cage tower, as Gaara quickly landed to the ground, as he noticed that the streets were relatively empty, as Gaara was a bit confused about the whole situation, but then many more attacks started to land in front of him, trying to push on the outskirts of the village. As Gaara noticed that, but he did not want it to harm the village, so he started to get backward towards the outskirts of the village. Now let us get back to Naruto, or rather Tsunade, as Tsunade was in her home, as she was looking towards the Leaf Village. In all of her time being here, it was the village her grandfather founded along with her grand uncle, but it seemed that this village has really turned up to be a bad thing. When did it all started to change? Was it in the era of the second coming of the third Hokage? No, she simply shook her head. It changed when third Hokage took the mentor as a Hokage. It seemed that after the death of the second Hokage, Konoha was never the same to begin with, as she has a, you can say, tired sigh after that. But then suddenly she noticed a presence behind him, behind her, as she quickly turned around ready to fight off anyone who was there. But to her surprise, it was the one person she never expected to be there, as this was none other than her grandson figure. As Naruto finally came to the light, as he had a small smile on his face. Well, Granny, it seemed that you're young. You're as old as ever. As Tsunade had a tick mark on her face. What did you say, Gaki? As Naruto let out a small chuckle, as Tsunade's, you can say, expression softened a little as she said, Naruto, what are you doing here? You know that it's Konoha. You simply cannot enter here. As Naruto let out a small sigh as he said, well, Granny, I'm here for you. As Tsunade was taken aback from that, as Naruto simply looked towards her. You and I both know the situation, Granny, and it's about time you make a decision for yourself. You know that all the other elemental nations will not stand for Uzushio to return back to the land of the elemental nations. They will try anything and everything in their power to make us suffer. So I really do not want you to be here when this whole thing will blow up on their faces along with Konoha. As Tsunade narrowed her eyes for a moment, but then she started to think about it. As Naruto said, well, Granny, you and I both know that Konoha is not the place which it shows how about this whole situation. It is not the place of a loving person. It is a place where people like Minato and Tadokage ruled, and they were tricking the people like us to serve this village when it was nothing more than a trash on this whole world. You and I both know that after the death of your grandfather and your grand uncle, third Hokage and Minato, fourth Hokage, has really changed this village for the worse. As Tsunade was listening to all of this, as she sighed, as she quickly looked back towards the village, as she said, well, Naruto, you know that I simply cannot leave the village. This was a village founded by my grandfather. As Naruto speak up, the very grandfather ideals, the very ideals which does not matter to this village. Grandma Tsunade, you and I both know that this village does not care for the Senju clan anymore. Rather, it cared for the people like Minato as well as the Uchiha clan, which is nothing more than a power hungry clan. And they are taking everything away from Konoha. You and I both know that, don't we? As Tsunade literally sighed, a defeated sigh. For the first time in years, she was looking a bit old, even with the genjutsu, as if she was tired about this whole situation, as she was one of the Sonins, as she has served this village for years, and now it seemed that all of that service, all of that blood and sweat she has, you can say, now it does not matter anymore, as if it was all of it was nothing more than a lie. As she simply looked towards Naruto, what do you want me to do, Naruto? Just abandon this village, huh? As Naruto simply looked towards her as he said, well, Tsunade, that is literally I'm telling you to do. Abandon the village, the very village which has abandoned the ideals of your grandfather. Abandon the village which will abandon you without a second thought. The very village will abandon the Senju clan. As Tsunade simply shook her head, Naruto, it is not that simple. I have served this village. I was born in this village, even with everything this village has done. As Naruto, the next sentence which came out of the Naruto's mouth, as literally shocked and freed Tsunade to the place. Abandon the village which has abandoned your lover as well as your brother Tsunade. The very village which gave off the order for the execution of your brother Nawaki as well as your lover Dawn. As Tsunade froze in her place, as she simply looked towards Naruto with her narrowed eyes. What did you say, Naruto? As Tsunade had clear anger in her eyes. As Naruto simply nodded at that as he bring out a scroll. As he simply tossed it to Tsunade. As Tsunade grabbed the scroll with, you can say, shaky arms. As she started to open the scroll, as there was something in her head saying that she should burn the scroll right here and right now. She does not want her to see what was inside of it, but something was telling her that it was important. It was simply not possible. As her sensei, maybe even though she has heard many things about her sensei lately, that how he was not the kind-hearted leader, how he was just a, you can say, same as Danzo, but he will never do that, right? After all, Don was her lover as well as Nawaki was the grandson of Hashirama as well as Tobirama, his senseis. As she opened the scroll, it was stamped by the third Hokage, entry 1. It seemed that Tsunade has lately a lover. His name is not other than Dawn, and she wanted to settle down as a family. Well, it simply cannot be happen right now. We are in the second great ninja war. We need the help of Tsunade. Even though it pains my heart, I have nothing against Tsunade or her lover, but it seems that I have no other option for Tsunade to participate in the whole war. We want Dawn to be gone so that she could focus on the war efforts. Even though it pains my heart, but I have to do this for the good of Konoha and for Konoha to prosper. We simply cannot have Tsunade to resign as a shinobi. So, with the pain heart, I sentence Dawn for the execution. When he came there, as his own comrades will turn up against him, and then when Tsunade will come to heal him, a special type of poison will be in his body, and when Tsunade started to heal him, how that poison will react to that and kill Don even more quickly and more painfully. I'm sorry, Tsunade, but it has to be done for the good of Konoha. As Tsunade simply could not believe it, how she has done all of this service to the village, and this is the prize which was given to her by her sensei. But then she quickly opened the other part of the scroll as I started to read it. It seems that Orochimaru is making a lot of progress in the whole affair of the bloodline of my sensei Hashirama Senju, but it seems that some parts are missing. It seems that he requires a living person for the samples. It seems that even though Tsunade is a Senju, but it seems that she is a lot stronger and she is required on the battlefield. While on the other hand, even though I will not like it, but for the good of Konoha and for the prosperation of our own agendas, I will have to do this. And hereby I sign for Nawaki to be kidnapped and you can say a separate or rather a fake body will be created so that Tsunade could be told that how her little brother has died, while in secret Orochimaru will perform the experiments on Don's own Nawaki so that we can uncover the secrets of the Mokudan ability. New entry, it seemed that Nawaki's DNA was able to, as well as the cells of Hashirama, were able to give us some results. It seemed that only one of them was able to make it, none other than Yamato. Well, this situation is interesting, but it seems that we will have to keep Nawaki alive for some time. I've already assigned Orochimaru to put him away so that we can use him lately, as Tsunade had her shaky hands on that as she could not believe it, as Naruto simply looked towards her, as she simply looked towards Naruto. Is he? As Naruto simply nodded at that with a small smile on his face. Yes, Granny Tsunade, I was able to infiltrate some of the bases of Orochimaru, and it seemed that your brother Nawaki was alive all of this time, even though he has grown up and is in pretty bad situation, and he can no longer be a shinobi, but still he is alive, Granny, and he's back in Uzushio. As Tsunade collapsed after hearing that, she started to cry a lot, as Naruto let out a sigh at that, but it seemed that it has to be done. As he simply looked towards her, so Granny, now you're on side, you can either come with me or I have to leave you here. As Tsunade had an angry look on her face and a resolve and determination, as she simply looked towards Naruto and ready, Naruto, just get me out of this accursed village. As Naruto simply nodded at that as he put a hand on Tsunade's shoulder and then boom, vanished from the area. Now let us get back to Gaara. As Gaara landed beside the sand, as he could see, all around him was sand, as he was more than happy to crush all of these people here. After all, they were trying to attack him in his own village. He was more than, you can say, ready to destroy them. But to his utter surprise, a wind gust arrived in the area, and then two persons arrived there as Gaara quickly jumped back as a puppet tried to, you can say, attack him with his sword, as Gaara quickly crushed the puppet. But then his eyes widened as he realized which puppet it actually was. It was the puppet of Kankuro. As Gaara looked back towards the area to see none other than his siblings as well as many other Ambu that were there landed beside his sibling as well as several Junins. As Gaara narrowed his eyes towards his sibling, wondering what is actually going on here. Only one thought was coming to his mind which he was rejecting. It was not possible. They literally cannot do that to him, right? As he simply looked towards his sibling as he said, Kankuro, Gaara, Kankuro, Temari, what are you guys doing? What is going on here? As Temari speak up, Gaara, you remember years ago when only one word could actually describe you, that was none other than a monster. I still loved you as my little brother. We never gave up on you, but even back then, I still had my own dreams and goals in my life. Did you know our father wanted me to be the next case cage after him? As Gaara's eyes widened at that, he did not knew that particular information. But when about the whole situation against Konoha, when we lost the whole thing, and then the council made you the new case cage, even though I still had my dream of becoming the case cage and bringing the sand to glory. My whole dreams were crushed, but no, I tolerated that. After all, I knew that you were my little brother. I accepted that. But after that, after years of serving you, I was in a relationship with Shikamaru, but you bring out this whole situation with Konoha. Once again, I told you to not take part in it. I wanted to be with Shikamaru, but no, you once again took my dreams away and bring the whole situation with Konoha. And even back then, I was still in a secret relationship with Shikamaru. I tolerated that, but now I can already see in your eyes, Gara. I can see that you will not take part with the elemental nations and you will not allow Sand to take part in this whole situation, even though when you knew that how the Uzumaki clan is a danger to the village and you will let Sand to be not a part of it, and when all the other elemental nations will try to take their revenge on Uzushio Gakure, I know that Shikamaru as well as Konoha will have a heavy price to pay for that, and Shikamaru might die. I will not accept it, Gara, not anymore. I will not let you to destroy my dreams and my hopes in my life anymore. I have tolerated enough, and now I will take back what it belongs to me. As Gara's eyes widened at that, he never knew that this whole situation was going this badly, or he has destroyed the dreams of his sister. As Samari speak up, I have prepared this coup, Gara. The council has already agreed to that, how the Uzushio Gakure is a threat to Sand and it shall be dealt with, and since you did not want to take part of it anymore, you will be dealt with as well, Gara. I am from here on the Rokudan case cage. As Gara was more than you can say ready to defend himself, but he simply cannot let himself to you can say attack his own family. How could he attack his sibling after years of being with them? As I simply looked towards Kankuro, who was a bit hesitant, but still he was with his sister. After all, the bond which he had with Temari was far stronger than the bond which he had with Gara. After all, when Gara was just a monster, he still had his family, his sister. Even though his father never paid much mind to him, but still, he was a part of family, and if Temari is to be next case cage along with the orders of the council, then he is with his case cage. As he simply shook his head and tried to attack Gara once again, as Gara simply looked down and then a swirl of sand engulfed him as he vanished from the area. As Temari's eyes widened as he said, "Search for him, do not let him escape no matter what," as all the Ambu as well as Joni simply dashes off, you can say, after Gara. As Minato was sitting in Konoha in his office, as an Ambo landed beside him with a scroll, as Minato grabbed the scroll as he opened it, as he started to read it, after some time a smirk came to his face as Kushina was also there. "What happened, Minato-kun?" As Minato smirked, it seemed that the trouble of the case cage is dealt with, as Kushina had also had a smile on her face. So it happened actually. Well, it was a good thing that Shikamaru had a relationship with that Temari girl. As Minato simply nodded at that, and I knew that how to use it. As he smirked at that, after all, they were the one who offered, you can say, a truce between Sand as well as Konoha, and how after Temari will become the case cage, how they can deal with the other elemental nations after they will deal with, you can say, the Uzushio Gakure. So it would be easy life for them, as Temari, who was already pretty emotional, was pretty easy for them to convince her, as she simply smirked at that. As then soon Kushina simply looked towards Minato as he said, "Minato, what happened to Menma and Naruko? You do realize that they are no longer the Jinchurikis of the Nine Tails," as Minato greeted his state. "Two of the Jinchurikis who could utilize up to 3 tails, even though both Menma and Naruko were never able to access the full power of the 4 tails. State, they were still the Jinchurikis as well as his children's. Even though he still have his plan, he still love his children a little bit, but still." As he greeted his state, as he said, "Don't worry about it. When we will take down that abomination, we will force him to give the power back to both Menma and Naruko. Their body is adjusted to the yokai of the QB. So, which means that even they can still become the Jinchuriki after all of this time in this age of their life. As Kushina simply nodded at that, this situation, we have to deal with it quickly. The Uzumaki clan is a threat and they shall be dealt with. And after that, we will have what we actually deserve, and that secret weapon of the Uzumaki clan as well as the Sage of Six Paths belongs to us and no one else. As Minato simply nodded at that, the years of planning, he will never let it to be destroyed just like that. So, soon enough, the other elemental nations will be more than happy to deal with this threat for them. As Minato smirked, he already had his plans ready. How they're going to infiltrate, you can say, the Usushio Gakure and get the scroll once again so that they can have it and that power under their command and nothing will stop them. The history will repeat itself no matter what. And now let us cut back to Toby, or rather Obito. Obito in this time was barely able to escape the reach of Naruto along with Nagato, who knew everything about him, as he slammed his face in the, you can say, wall in his own dimension. He was angry, he was beyond angry. Years of planning, years of manipulation was literally destroyed. His own senses somehow came back to life. It seemed that he was able to trick him to think that how he has killed them, but no, he was alive. And the Jinchuriki, the so-called Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, did not even have the chakra of the Kyuubi. And after that, it seemed that he has lost the Rinnegan, which means that he can no longer summon the Gedomazu, which means that all of his plans, years of planning is literally destroyed. He can no longer be with his Rin-chan. He will not accept it no matter what. It seemed that he has to resort back to the only last plan which he had, which he really did not want to use. It seemed that he has to bring back Madara so he can deal with this whole situation. Only then he could have the Rinnegan back in his possession. After all, Obito has to admit that all of the Akatsuki is now under the command of that Uzumaki Naruto, as well as Nagato has also joined him. And now he possessed the Rinnegan, and on top of that, he possessed the secret weapon of the Uzumaki clan of the Sage of Six Paths, that sword of Eon, the sword which possessed the power to control all of the Bijus, which means that it could actually control the 10 tails even if it somehow got revived, and all of his plans will literally be destroyed. As Obito gritted his teeth, he has to get that weapon. If he gets his hands on the sword, he can summon the Gedomazu, as well as can control all of the 9 Bijus, and after that, he can easily deal with the whole situation and bring out the Jubi and put the world in a infinite Tsukiyomi. Yes, he will do it. It is the perfect plan. For that, he only has to bring back the one person, that is Madara Uchiha. It seems that he has a meeting with a certain snake, as he simply vanished from the area. As Gaara was escaping the sand village, it was not that difficult to begin with. After all, Gaara could control the sand and they were in the desert, so it was pretty easy for Gaara to escape the whole situation from there on. And to his utter surprise, he was on the border of the land of fire as well as the land of wind. A single person was sitting there waiting for him, as this was none other than Naruto. As he simply looked towards Gaara, as he said, Gaara, it seemed that we have a lot to discuss. As Gaara simply nodded at that, as both of them simply vanished from the area. And now let us get back to Obito. As Obito finally arrived in front of Kabuto, when Naruto finally killed off, you can say, Orochimaru, Kabuto was able to escape, as Obito was a bit confused, as he simply looked towards him as he said, where is Orochimaru? I have some business with him. As in his Madara's voice, as Kabuto simply started to chuckle, as he said, well, it seemed that fake Madara does not know that my lord Orochimaru has been killed off years ago. As Obito's eyes widened at that, it seemed that he was a bit too busy with the Katsuki to not know that how somehow Orochimaru was killed off. As he said, what? When did that happen? As Kabuto simply put his glasses upward as he said, that damn Uzumaki was the one who killed him off. But it does not matter anymore. What do you want from him, my dear Madara-chan? As Obito narrowed his eyes, You will mind your tongue, you damn insect. I can crush you. After all, I am Madara. As Obito, as Kabuto started to chuckle. Oh please, my dear Uchiha-kun. You and I both know that you are not Madara. So let us forget this whole chit chat and get back to the business. After all, if you have something to ask for Orochimaru, I can also grant you. After all, something tells me it is about that dear Uzumaki, which I want to get revenge on so dearly. As Obito narrowed his eyes, this was not the plan, but it seemed that he has to deal with the whole situation. Damn him, damn that Uzumaki. After you can say always meddling with his business, always you can say putting up so much resistance as he gritted his teeth on that. Now let us cut back to Tsunade. As Tsunade has finally arrived to the Uzushio Gakure, it has been literally a lot of time. As she remembered only one time she has came to Uzushio Gakure, that was with her grandmother when she was just a kid, and after that she never came to Uzushio Gakure when she became a shinobi when Uzushio was around. The third Hokage never allowed her to go to the Uzushio Gakure after coming up with another or one or another excuses or saying that how it could be dangerous or anything like it. Now she realized it must be that third Hokage was fearful that if Tsunade would, you can say, bond in Uzushio Gakure, she would might want to stay here for some time and that could be dangerous for Konoha, seeing that how Tsunade was part Uzumaki clan still has claim to her since there were no Senju around to begin with. So that was one of the reasons he never allowed her to come to this place, but now she realized this place was really beautiful. The beach was all around the place as there was a special sector in which civilians could enjoy themselves as well as several shinobis who like to have a small break and many other things that were not in Konoha. And this place was actually pretty beautiful, but right now she has her mind on other things, especially only one person, that was her brother Nawaki. It has been years since she has seen Nawaki and all that. So she was pretty, you can say, happy as well as a bit scared about his situation, wondering how she will actually face her little brother after such a long time, realizing that he will not be that little anymore and must be growing a young man, or rather in this point at this point a rather old man to begin with. As she simply shook her head, it does not matter, no matter how old he might actually get, he will always be her little brother. As she simply finally arrived to the palace, as Naruto said, "Follow me, granny." As Tsunade simply nodded at that as she started to follow Naruto, and absently she noted that Shizune was not here with her. Well, she will ask Naruto to bring Shizune later on, and she finally arrived to the place or a special section in the whole palace, as she was pretty amazed to see this large palace, realizing that it was different than the Hokage residence, a lot bigger than usual, but she simply shook her head. It does not matter anymore. As she finally arrived to a special section, or rather a hospital ward in the palace. As she finally arrived to the door, as Naruto said, "Well, Granny Tsunade, he's behind this door. Well, it is up to you. After all, you are a medic. You should be able to realize his situation." As Tsunade simply nodded, as her hands were trembling with anticipation as well as a bit of fear, as she finally pushed the door open. As she finally arrived, it was pretty similar to a hospital room. As she finally arrived to the place, as she finally looked towards the face of her little brother after years, the very little brother she thought that died years ago, as she gasped after looking towards his face. He was, you can say, weak, or really weak, as it was the same condition, you can say, as Nagato. After all, the experiments which were performed on him that were for years, Orochimaru, as well as trying to come up with several healing process. After all, Nawaki was the grandson of Hashirama Senju, and Hashirama's DNA and cells always work well with Nawaki's DNA and cells, and several other experiments were performed on Nawaki. His condition was same as Nagato's. As Tsunade gasped, as tears started to come to her eyes, as she quickly rushed towards him, as Nawaki was at this point was asleep, thanks to some, you can say, antibodies and things like that. as Tsunade started to cry openly after looking towards the condition of her little brother, but then suddenly anger started to fill her heart and eyes. This was done to her little brother by Konoha, by Orochimaru. When she will get her hands on that damn snake, she will crush him. No second thought whatsoever. It will not be like those years ago when all Sonins face each other. She will not hold back, not anymore. As she looked towards Naruto, where is that damn snake? No matter what, Naruto, I'm going to kill him. And that is final. As Naruto simply looked towards her. Well, Grandma Tsunade, I suppose it is not possible, as Tsunade was thinking that Naruto was refusing her to kill Snake, but Naruto said, as I said before, it is not possible because Orochimaru is already dead. As Tsunade simply looked towards Naruto for some time, you killed him, didn't you? As Naruto simply nodded at that, well, I had to reach Nawaki, and he was an obstacle, so he was meant to be destroyed. As Tsunade simply nodded at that as she quickly looked towards her little brother, as Nawaki was at this point opening his eyes, as Naruto simply looked towards Tsunade. Well, Grandma Tsunade, I'll be giving you some time with your little brother. After all, you have a lot of catching up to do. After that, we will see that what is the best thing we can do for your little brother. As Tsunade simply nodded at that, as tears were already streaming from her eyes, as Nawaki opened his eyes, as he simply looked towards Tsunade for some time, as he said, Nichan, as Tsunade finally broke, as tears started to stream from her eyes as she quickly hugged her little brother, as Naruto simply nodded at that, as that expression on his face, as Konoha has done a lot of harm to its own people. As Naruto simply shook his head, soon enough Konoha will pay for its crime, no matter what. As Naruto simply went outside, as Tsunade had some time with her little brother. Now let us cut back to the other person. That was none other than Gaara. As Naruto was looking towards Gaara sitting on his throne, as Gaara was in front of him, as Naruto sighed as he said, well Gaara, first of all, I would like to tell you, it has been some time, and it has been good to see you. But it seems that your condition is not so well, I presume. As Gaara simply nodded at that, it's supposed that you already know what happened in Sand, don't you, Naruto Uzumaki? As Naruto simply nodded at that, as I said, well, I do have spies everywhere. It seemed that the council was already planning a coup d'etat against you, saying that how you did not want it to take part in this whole situation with the elemental nations as well as the Uzushi Gakure, as Gaara simply nodded at that. As Naruto simply sighed as he said, well Gaara, first of all, I would like to tell you that how I'm happy that you feel that you did not need any reason to attack my homeland once again, even though I know that my people would have wanted revenge against Sand as well, but you have my word, Gara. If you would have stayed there, or you would have still be Case Cage, I would not have touched the lands of the Wind Country as well as Suna. But now it seems that they will attack us no matter what. Isn't that right, Gara? As Gara simply nodded at that as he said, my sister. It seemed that she hated me all along. As Naruto sighed, as he said, well, Gara, I would not say hate you, but another term could also be used, a bit jealous. After all, as she said to you, she was meant to be the next Case Cage, which you became. After that, the whole situation with the Konoha, the Leaf Village, and all that, she is just a bit confused. As Gaara simply nodded at that, to be honest, Gaara was feeling pretty bad at this point, thinking that how he has ruined his life of his sister, as Naruto grabbed the shoulder of Gaara as he said, Gaara, look at me. It is not your mistake that you became the Case Cage. It was not your choice. It was the choice of the Suna Council. They could have wanted her, but you and I both know that if Temari were to be the Case Cage, the Suna would not have survived. The land country, or rather the rock village, would have attacked, the stone village would have attacked your country. So you and I both know that it would have been troublesome. It was only because of your own reputation that Suna was able to stand up to other countries as one of the elemental nations. As Gaara simply nodded at that, as Naruto sighed as he said, why don't you take some rest, Gaara? We will talk about it later. As Gaara simply nodded and went off with one of the Ambu. As Naruto simply shook his head, it seemed that Konoha is still meddling with the affairs of other countries and other nations. It seemed that it has to be dealt with. As Naruto narrowed his eyes as his Rinnegan pulsed with power, soon enough it will all begin, and when it will, Naruto will end it along with the Uzumaki clan as he gripped his hand as one of wise speak in his mind. I cannot wait for this whole thing to begin, Uzumaki, Naruto. As Naruto simply smirked, well, it will happen soon, Kurama. And you and I both know that who is coming back, don't we? As Kurama had a large grin on his face, he would like to see the look on the face of that bastard Uchiha when he will see that he can no longer control me. As he started to laugh, your plan is pretty brilliant. You are able to figure out all the steps. So it is the reason you let that other masked Uchiha to leave, right? As Naruto simply smirk at that. After all, that Uchiha has its uses, Kurama. And you and I both agree to that, don't we? As Kurama simply smirked at that, soon enough, Madara Uchiha Kurama will crush him with his tails, or rather arms. Well, he will think about it later. But yeah, he will crush him as he started to laugh, maniac laugh, hoo ha. And now let us get back to Tsunade as Tsunade finally came out of the room of her little brother and she was really happy to see him after such a long time and she realized that her medical skills were not enough to heal her little brother, but it will take some time. She will be able to figure out what she can actually do for her little brother, even though he has gotten to the age of 40, but still he was still her little brother and she will do anything to protect him no matter what, and this time Konoha will not take him away no matter what. To the throne room in which Naruto was sitting along with Nagato, who was beside him as they were discussing about the whole situation. As Tsunade speak up, hey Naruto, as Naruto simply looked towards Tsunade as he said, yo grandma, what happened, huh? As Tsunade simply grumbled about you can say disrespecting brats and things like that, but she still had a small smile on her face as she said, well Naruto, I wanted to ask you about a different thing. About Jiraiya, what happened to him? You have offered me this choice, but what about Jiraiya? As Naruto sighed, he wanted to avoid this topic, but he simply shook his head as he said, well, Grandma Tsunade, do tell me, if even I were to extend this offer to Jiraiya, you and I both know his answer, don't we? As Tsunade sighed, it was true. Jiraiya thought that if Naruto was to be the child of destiny, which then it will mean that Naruto will destroy the elemental nations. So he was hoping dearly that if only Menma and Naruto were to be the child of destiny, but even though he deep down knew that Naruto was the one, so that was the reason he was helping with Konoha, not wanted the elemental nations to be destroyed, he wanted peace, and that was the only reason he was helping Minato in his whole quest, thinking that Naruto is the child of destruction. As Naruto simply nodded at that, already knowing that, as Tsunade sighed, as he said, well, what about Shizune and Shazun, you forgot him. I just want you to bring her to me. As there was silence in the room, as Tsunade had a bad feeling about this whole situation. As she said, Naruto, um, what happened? I'm telling you to bring me Shizune as well. You know that she has been with me a long time, so I want her with me as well. And I will give you guarantee that she is not with Konoha, her loyalty lies with me. As Naruto simply sighed, a defeated sigh, as he said, well, Grandma, you must sit down for this one. As Tsunade had a bad feeling in her gut, but she simply nodded at that, as Naruto sighed. As he said, well, Grandma, mind telling me who this Shizune actually is to begin with? As Tsunade simply said, what are you talking about, Naruto? You know that Shizune is related to Dawn. She is his niece. As Naruto simply sighed, so have you ever met Shizune with this Dawn person? As Tsunade was about to answer, but then she started to realize that actually she has never met Shizune whenever she was with Dawn. Actually, Dawn has never told her about his family. The only thing he told her that how his parents died long time ago and he was an orphan and he only had his older brother, nothing more than that. As as she had a bad feeling about it. As Naruto sighed, as she said, "Well, Grandma Tsunade, it is pretty simple. I must tell you about the truth, but even though it is going to hurt you a little, but there is nothing I can do actually about it. Shizune is actually not related to Dawn whatsoever. It is true that Dawn had an older brother, but he died a long time ago and he did not have any children whatsoever. Actually, Shizune is from Root." As Tsunade's eyes widened at that, as she said, What are you talking about, Naruto? She's related to Dawn. She's like a daughter to me. She has been with me for years." As Naruto nodded in the orders of Third Hokage as well as on the orders of Danzo, if you ever were to step out of line. After all, they did wanted to keep tabs on you, and if you ever get out of line, or if any other elemental nations try to kidnap you or get their hands on you in your drunken condition to get the strict secrets of Konoha, you are to be executed by her. She was secretly an Ambu. As there was dead silence in the room, as Tsunade was contemplating everything, it actually made sense. Her sensei letting her go, and even Danzo did not say a word at that. And all the things, the time she has spent with Shizuru, as she said, no, it is not possible, Naruto. She simply cannot be one of the Ambus of Root. Root has emotionless. As Naruto simply nodded at that, and she has been trained with the Ambu of Hokage secret division within the root as well. So that is the only reason she could actually be different from drones. But make no mistake, Tsunade, she is loyal to Danzo and Danzo alone. And maybe to the fourth Hokage as well. That is the only reason I took you away from it. As Tsunade was dead silence there. As Naruto sighed, as tears were already coming to the eyes of Tsunade, and even though anger was fueling even further, as if her whole life was, you can say, created and controlled by Konoha, by Third Hokage, and people like Danzo and his advisors. As she was angry, she was furious. She wanted to destroy, punch something so desperately as Naruto grabbed her. "Don't worry, Grandma Tsunade. The time soon will come. You will have your revenge on those people who have destroyed your life, no matter what." As she simply nodded at that. Soon enough, she will never forgive Konoha for what it has done to her as well as to her little brother, as she gritted her teeth on that. So yeah guys, here I will love this part. Hope you guys like it. For the next part, you guys already know the like goal, which is going to be 250 likes and 180 comments. Do that and I shall upload the next part as quick as possible. So yeah guys, hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, peace.